All right, man. So today we're going to talk about brands winning in the consideration economy, which is an interesting topic that you came up with because I had something that came to mind this morning, which is you in an immeasurable way over index in your interest in knowledge of advertising compared to your average person. Your cop, your fireman, your nurse, your doctor, your lawyer, they've got their things that they're interested in. You spend absolute bare minimum 10 hours a day in marketing and advertising and probably 70% of your free time thinking about this shit. Here's my question. Can you remember 3 brands that advertised on the Super Bowl just a couple months ago?
Ooh, this is a great question. No.
Crazy, right?
I mean, I'm sure Doritos was there, but that's not because I remember them. They're always there.
Yeah, in Budweiser, and I assume you're correct. I wouldn't be surprised if they skipped it this year, but crazy, right?
Maybe Mercedes.
I think that was the Masters, and we talked about it. Crazy, right? So here's my point. This is what we do all day, every day. And 2 days after the Super Bowl, you and I were in multiple meetings with clients, deciphering, analyzing the ads, and now it's a couple months later, we can't remember any of them.
I couldn't remember the ads the next day. I remember I had to go look up, like, can I see all the ads from the Super Bowl?
100%. It's crazy, right? It's by dollars, single most valuable spot for a brand to buy advertising. And it quite simply doesn't work. And today, we're going to talk about stuff that does work. So let's get going.
3, 2, 1, go!
I think you could argue it does work, but I think the lasting effects of a single impression, right, on a 30-second spot, probably your frequency isn't high enough for anybody to remember anything, right? It does take multiple touches. And I think we've said this, not the same ad over and over and over again, although there comes a limit, like 2-3 times, fine. But like, what, you're going on a journey, right, with this brand. They're courting you. They're cuddling you, right? Look at this, look at this, look at this. It is a process to become a brand champion of something. And one time on the biggest sporting event on earth is probably not enough.
Nobody wants in their courting or their cuddling the same experience over and over and over again, right? Brands are looking for more. And that's what brings us here today, because I think we've hit this point many times, right? And today, the topic that you've suggested, I think, is a great one, which is let's look at some brands that are doing it really well. And let's point out the things that are doing well. And let's talk about the lessons from them so we could take our thesis statement and really make it super tangible. And I always love this because you're so great with brands and I'm a complete knucklehead. There's like 2 brands I buy from on a regular basis. And then you always introduce me these cool brands, then I wind up addicted to those brands also. So tell me, what's on your mind right now? What are some awesome brands?
There's 2 that come to mind. The first one is GANT. Do you remember wearing GANT back in high school?
Oh, yeah. My mom took me to shop at the flea market all the time. I had fake Nike shoes. They look like whales on the side, and you hope that nobody realized that they were flea market shoes.
Yeah.
And a couple years later, we moved up in the ranks. GANT. We would get the discount shit. My mom would buy me same 6 shirts, all the same shirt, but in different colors.
Yes. Like when you met me in college, I was wearing the same goddamn turtleneck, but I had like 6 different colors. So GANT has been resurrected, probably bought by private equity, and they put money in. They're like, we're going to build this up. So anyway, so they're kind of a preppy brand. And they did this really unique thing where most fashion brands, clothing companies on social, they put out like, here's our product, sexy model. They're doing some stuff, the whole thing. GANT's like, no, let's flip this on its head. We're going to create what I think is like a social mini story. So they have these like social mini stories, and it is a scene within a day that takes place in New York. It's called New York Stories, and they have different characters, and they experience different things. Whether you're sitting on a park bench and you meet somebody for the first time, right? And what that's like and what they go through, and then with what they say to each other, and then they're off. It takes you right into, I think, like a window into someone's world, someone's experiences. But of course, they're dressed in GANT. They look fantastic. And I think there's GANT showing like, look, we have clothes for every situation, right? Which I think is really smart. And you as a viewer love these situations. You buy into these characters, which is really cool. So then I went, and there's another brand that I follow called Brooklyn Coffee Shop. And Brooklyn Coffee Shop has done something also really similar and clever, but it's shot in the same place. It's in the coffee shop. It is the same two baristas behind the counter, and it's their interactions with the customers as they come up. And it's hilarious. It's culturally relevant. It's funny. Like, it's endearing. It's all this stuff. And you've got all of these people tuning in, commenting on the characters as they return to the series or not return, but the two baristas are always there. And you keep coming back to a brand to be entertained. Like, genius. Like, instead of saying, what can we do in social, right? That's funny or dumb or stupid or meme based, right? They're creating content that people are drawn to, like magnets, and they come back every single, let's call it a week, to see the new content that's up.
So help me understand this, because we all have Netflix, Hulu, Apple TV, etc., right? There's no shortage of content. But in these two examples, help me understand, like, what is so powerful about this content that, as you say, it's thumb stopping. You're not scrolling right past this.
It doesn't look like every other piece of content out there. You open up your feed today, it's a talking head, right? With some hook that they've tested into. It works, right? You know, we're going to 10x your, I don't know, performance on the road bike, right? Like whatever it is, or some sort of hook that's going to get you in. And it's usually some guy walking or girl walking with the phone in their hand, right? And they're going to tell you why this product you have to absolutely buy right now. It is a game changer, right? This is the sort of stuff that I think what was once really innovative and new and novel is now really old hat. So GANT and Brooklyn Coffee Shop and others like Duolingo have said, no, we're going to flip this on its head and we're going to create content that people are drawn to. We're going to create stories and narratives that people want to buy into. And look, at one day that will get old too. But for right now, like what's new, actually, that first mover advantage is huge. And they get the eyeballs and everybody else is just a follower.
Yeah, I mean, when you just think about GANT, there are so many fashion brands that are not almost identical. They are identical. They all have the same model. You ever notice that? There's that one guy. Dude,
yeah,
I'm not
I know what you're
making this
talking
up.
about too. Super handsome black guy, right? Bonobos uses them. J. Crew uses them. He's the same guy in every goddamn catalog.
Can I blow your mind? He's a maitre d' at a restaurant around the corner from me in Manhattan.
Get out of town.
So, dude, it's crazy that you and I see the same guy. So how, like, if we know that differentiation, particularly in clothing, and you need to tell a story is so absolutely critical, and everyone not only has the same playbook, but literally the same model, and soon enough, they're not going to have models. They're going to have AI models, so it's just going to be cheaper and cheaper. You have to do something totally unique, right? And it comes down to that thing that we've talked about before, like, everyone who's revolutionized football, starting with Bill Walsh, has come up with this basic concept of put the ball where the other team isn't. It used to be about 3 yards in a cloud of dust. And then Bill Walsh was like, wait a second, everyone's just running it right up the middle. Let's just throw it 6 yards out to Jerry Rice, let him run another 66, score the touchdown. Fast forward over to Belichick, fast forward again over to Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. Same thing, put the ball where the other team isn't. And I know that's a bit of a pivot away from GANT and fashion, but it's exactly what they're doing, because you're not going to win just on a better media plan. Everyone has access to great media. You're not going to win by doing the same old content. You have to tell something unique and compelling. And I think you kind of alluded to this. It's not going to last very long, right? Because people are going to see that content like, I'm going to do it too. I'm going to do it too. I'm going to do it too. Like first there was Yeti, then everybody did the Yeti thing. Now there's these examples you're coming up with, and everyone's going to copy them. And all of a sudden they're going to have to pivot to something new and unique. Novelty is power.
Novelty is power. That's exactly right. And I think, these stories, you ask yourself, why would I watch a 1 minute miniseries, right? I think if you go to Netflix, you expect to watch an hour-long show, but I think these brands have said, why can't we create 1 minute snackable content, right? The attention's there. And I think they took a risk, and a calculated risk. I think it really paid off. It was brave of them to do. I imagine the budgets were not big at all to put this together. There's no big name actors in this stuff. And I don't think people give a shit, right? I think it's as long as it's quality content that taps into some sort of cultural relevant currency at the time, I think it's so brilliant. And to tell your internal team, your agency, like, just come back with something that nobody's expecting, really important. And obviously a brand, you have to have permission to do this as a brand, right? Most brands are like, well, we need to stay on Style Guide and all this sort of stuff, and that's not us. I think social gives you permission to play in a whole nother way. And I think you're just going to see more and more of it like this. Like, these stories are probably the first of many iterations we've already been through, right? Think about social, the way it started, the way it is now, and there'll be many more to go. But yeah, to challenge your internal teams to be able to come up with something new and be a first mover, I think there's so much power in that.
And power in the bravery, right? Because you're literally saying create something that hasn't been done before. One thing I don't love, I know the industry loves it, we're going to test into this idea. I hate, what does that mean? Like, you're going to spend not much money and not do it great and then look at ambiguous metrics? Like, great brands are built through bravery. And I think what these guys are doing, it's really brave. Like, you sent me a couple of those videos. Nobody's doing anything that looks like that. So you can't lean on historical data. Like, you just have to have the guts to go for it.
100%. Like, scripted comedy from Brooklyn Coffee Shop or scripted series in New York from GANT. I don't think that was even remotely on the table over the last 2 years, right? I remember when Yeti started to do their stories, that was like a breakthrough revolutionary moment, right? At that point, like, oh my God, like, people are going to sit through a 5-minute story. I think it's the same thing here. Like, oh my God, people are going to watch a 1-minute series and they're going to come back over and over again. 100%.
Yeah. What other brands are you seeing out there that are setting your soul on fire?
Well, Duolingo is another one. They're a brand that has taken their, like, the little owl mascot Berg and made it a main character within their social and created its own personality. It's irreverent, it's funny, it's odd, it's weird, it's all those things. And the engagement rates are huge on social when you look at what they've done. So, can a brand just take like a mascot, a character, right, and actually breathe life into it in some way? I think 100%. And they would bring it to life, whether it's CGI, like 3D, or they would put somebody in an outfit and shoot live action. I think that's like in the spirit of trying to figure out how to stand out. Like, Duolingo's just done an amazing job. And then they weave in, obviously, their content about language learning throughout the whole thing, but sometimes not even at all. Like, it just wants to tap into cultural currency. So I love them. I also love, and I'm not on it, but Tinder. Tinder is awesome. They're just super funny and irreverent. And like, they'll tap into exactly what it feels like and the experiences you go through in the dating scene. Right. So a lot of people get ghosted on Tinder. So you set up a date, you swipe, like, both of you are like, okay, sweet, we'll meet at this coffee shop. And then people get ghosted. They hired a VP of ghost hunting. So I don't know if this was real or not, but it caught fire in social because they created a whole job description, put it on their website, and it was like all of the qualifications on how to hunt somebody down that totally ghosted you. Right. And I think it's that sort of playful attitude that is getting people to come back, and it's tapping right into the indisputable truth about what it means to be dating these days, right? And I bet you it was born from a brief or a challenge where it was like, hey, a lot of people on our platform are getting ghosted. What can we do about it? You know what I mean? Well, we can try to fix the algorithm and do all this sort of stuff, or we can poke fun at the fact that this happens. Right. And we're going to do it in a way that our audience actually, they understand. And we're trying to do something about it. But at the same time, like, this is just a part of what it means to be online dating in 2025.
Totally. The old model was run, hide, deny, have a false message, blast people over the head with it over and over and over again, and hope to God they don't realize that there's an issue, maybe with your brand or maybe with the category. And the new model is empathy. And that's what they're showing with Tinder, which is just empathy. We understand, and now we're a more relatable brand. Because we're a more relatable brand, we're a more trustable brand. And trust is always the holy grail for whether or not you want to buy from a brand and champion a brand. And then with Duolingo,
Yeah.
it's interesting because what they're doing is the same thing. Their secret ingredient to success, which is just bravery, right? To your point, like how many awesome language learning tools are there? We're like, you can learn this in 14 days and all that stuff. And I'm sure that's in the message in there somewhere. And I got to say, this is a great example of me being dead wrong. Like I would see all that stuff from Duolingo. I'd be like, this is silly. This is dumb. They're going to get away from this. I was absolutely wrong because the other secret ingredient that they had was consistency, right? As soon as your metrics dip a little bit, you start freaking out and you pivot to in 14 days, you can learn it. And you look like everybody else. They just kept going and going and going. And, you know, most of that is mid and upper funnel, but it's exactly where they need to win, which is they're automatically in the consideration set. If you're going to learn any language in the world, you're absolutely going to consider that brand. And a lot of it is just the consistency and the power of that storytelling that lives in social.
Yep. You know, people just want something different.
All right. So, and then core to storytelling and social is obviously influencers and content creators. And I think in a lot of ways, we look at them as macro and micro. Can you pick up on that?
We've spent a number of years chasing macro influencers, right? I think there was a time that they were really good. And I see a lot of brands obviously doing it. The problem is that the engagement rates are not nearly as high as if you go with more of a micro influencer. You're paying for the influencer for a number of reasons. One is, okay, they have reach, right? That's great. The other one is their ability to create great content, right? But the third one, and I would argue probably the most important, is engagement. So you want this audience to engage with the content in whatever way you've devised with your creator. You just see engagement rates fall off a cliff for the bigger influencers. And now that might work for an advertiser like Doritos, but there's very few advertisers with budgets the size, right, of 100 to 200 million plus. When you talk about budgets that are dramatically small, you're 10 million, right, throughout the year, you're going to find a lot better engagement with let's call it a micro influencer. And micro to us could be anywhere from, 5,000 followers to 1 million, right? That's where I think the audiences have a better relationship with the creator. They have more interest in the content and hence whatever they put forth and the partnerships that they pick are going to be more valuable to them. They're going to be more credible and hence higher engagement.
Yeah, I think with the macro influencers, I think they're not very believable anymore and there's a lot of noise. I love Kevin Hart. Nobody makes me laugh harder than Kevin Hart. He laughs, I laugh. It's awesome. But in no way, shape, or form, when I see him promoting a product, I'm like, oh, Kevin really loves that product, and now I want to use it too. He's over at Chase Bank. I can't wait to open an account over there. No way, right? I think we all, as an audience, have a filter, and we know what's going on with those macro influencers. It's basically the same as TV advertising. You've been paid to sponsor this brand. You don't give a shit either way. Like,
wait a minute. Are you telling me Tiger Woods never drove a Buick?
Oh, he definitely drove a Buick.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Right after winning his third Masters, he just hopped in that car and drove away.
Can't wait to get into I don't even know what Buick makes. A LeSabre? What do they make? I think it's a Buick LeSabre.
This is a horrible thing to say as a couple marketers. Is Buick?
Nobody knows. Boy.
Is Buick still a brand or did they shut that one down?
No idea. But for two people who watch golf, know the fucking Tiger was sponsored by Buick, still can't name a model that they make.
They got rid of Lincoln except for the...
No, Navigator, right? Still around.
My bad. They still have Lincoln.
Maybe Oldsmobile you might be thinking of. By the way, worst name ever. Oldsmobile.
You think they were arguing? And like, no, we got to keep this one. This is awesome. There's so much equity in this brand.
Seriously.
Right on. All right, so back to the topic here, right? The other dirty secret with macro influencers, they're a nightmare to work with. I don't want to say all of them. Like we work with Martha Stewart and she was lovely. She was awesome in every way. But a lot of these macro influencers, they're just celebrities, right? And they show up late. They're hard to work with. They've got an attitude. Then you get the micro influencers, which are way more believable, right? They could be completely unknown, to your point, with 5,000 followers. For almost everybody, they're completely unknown, but it's an authentic voice. I know that word is overused, but it's paramount to success. It's an authentic voice. They create great content. They're super flexible. And whether you're macro or micro, you're not going to reach your target audience unless you put paid media behind it, right? Period. Done. End of story. The organic game, you can't win with it, right? So if you're going to be putting paid media behind it and optimizing it, you probably want a creator who's willing to create a high volume of content, test into these ideas, and is really easy and flexible to work with. So if you can get Kim Kardashian, I'm not throwing it under the bus. It works, but that only works for a small handful of brands with ridiculous budgets.
It's so important because most creators, right, are celebrities, right, who happen to hawk stuff. Whereas real creators are creating great content that people are seeking out, right? I think there's just a difference. And you think about the way you now discover content. So you're on Instagram and you don't have to follow an account anymore to be served their content. It's suggested posts. It's just part of our life now, which means that if you like a suggested post, you still don't have to follow the account, but we're going to serve it to you again and again, which means the content has to be good. So the creators you pick, look at the content, look at the engagement rates, look at how many times it's been served as a suggested post. That's the way consumers are going to discover these creators. That's the way they're going to discover your co-branded content with them. So it's really important to find people that care about the craft of what they're doing, the narrative they put out, because that's going to reflect on you.
Totally. Can I suggest a brand?
Yeah.
Have you heard of Sundays for dogs?
No.
This is one of those brands that comes along and like, as a marketer, you just become jealous. You're like, oh my God, these guys are killing it in every way, right? So yes, they do great stuff on social. They bring in influencers, to your point. They bring in micro influencers, really authentic voices, etc. But actually what turns me on about this brand is the totality of the journey. It's just good old-fashioned art and science coming together. So first of all, they've got a very clear value proposition, which is fresh dog food made easy. And what that means is their whole brand is based upon this concept of fighting friction, macro friction and micro friction. The macro friction in dog food, I don't know if you feel this way, kibble freaks me out a little bit. It's like, it doesn't seem healthy to me. And then you go to like Farmer's Dog, it's fresh, but and I bought from them. It's also a great brand, but it's expensive, it's messy, it's not for everyone, it's not easy at all. What these guys did is they found a space in between where they took all these great ingredients, beef, chicken, liver, vegetables, and air dried it. Whether that's fundamentally healthy or not, I'm not sure. But the way they present themselves, it certainly seems much more healthy. And they found that gap between kibble, which is easy, but feels unhealthy, and Farmer's Dog type products, which feels much more healthy, but is really not easy at all. That's kind of the foundation of their success. But from a marketing standpoint, what they're really good at is taking their value proposition, their reasons to believe, and bringing it to life in every granular step in their journey. Their value proposition is really clear. Fresh dog food made easy. What is that? 5 or 6 words? You totally get it. You go up on the website, they've got 4 key RTBs about how it's healthy and it's easy and it's delivered. You get it. You're not quite sure how it works. There's information. You're not quite sure how often you should order it. There's a customization plan. The product arrives, the most beautiful packaging you've ever seen. And then the packaging seems to change every couple of weeks. So it's still on brand, but it's totally fresh. They must have millions of customers. I got a personal note from somebody in customer service. Like, hey, welcome to the family. Love to work with you. Reach out if you need. Like, wow. Like at that kind of scale to get a personal note. And then even little things like, you know what sucks with dog food? You open the bag and then what do? You got a hot mess. There's just a little zipper. So the bag seals up, right? So I know we're spending a little bit of time on this example talking about packaging and physical stuff, not necessarily the story, but that becomes the story when you've got the insight and the empathy to look at every touch point from the big topics to the little topics, the moments that matter, and turn that friction into empowerment, it's an unstoppable brand. And now, here we are. I'm a brand champion. Hey.
Totally. You know what? Chewy, I found out we have Chewy, gets delivered every month. So people's dogs and cats die, right? Unfortunately. And Chewy did something remarkable. When somebody calls to cancel their subscription, and they ask why, and they let them know the dog died, they say, no problem. We're going to refund you, right? Last month's dog food, give it away, throw it away, whatever you want to do. And then 3 days later, a bouquet of flowers arrives from Chewy with their condolences.
Amazing.
It's amazing because they know that most pet owners are going to get another pet, right? And it's all about that human connection, right? Those moments, right? That really fucking matter to you as a pet owner, and who's going to be there for you during that process, that time. And I think that's just one of those times where a brand took a touch point that really could have been rough and hard and crap. How are we going to get them back? And they don't even have to worry about it because I know exactly where I'm going to go, right? Once I get another dog, I'm going to go back to Chewy.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the moments that matter so much. It's at the core of what we believe. But in a lot of ways, it's often about almost creating a moment that matters, right? Because you might, if your journey map is too simplistic, you might be thinking the moment that matters is you read some content, you go on the website, you go to order, you go to subscribe, whatever. But that is an absolutely massive moment where people are at their highest level of emotion, which means you can tip that relationship either way. And I'm sure there's somebody in media and analytics that's like, what are you doing? For the $35 of those flowers, we could get whatever it is, 35,000 media impressions, which most people don't really respond to. What could be more powerful than showing up at a painful moment that matters?
It kills me when brands don't respond to complaints on social, whether it's Twitter, right, Facebook, Instagram. I don't care if you can't solve their problem. Like, respond to every single one. Let me tell you, I notice. I don't have a problem, but I might be reading the comments. I notice. And I love it when brands also, when a great review goes out and you get the brand thanking them. Like, go on to TripAdvisor, right, and read the reviews. And the brands that respond back, or on Google reviews, it's amazing, right? That shows to me that, like, not only did you get your 4.5, 5 stars and you got a great review, you're actively involved on the day-to-day. Like, you didn't let a day go by that you didn't check these reviews and respond to somebody. People think that, that's not important. I would argue that's way more important than even doing paid media first. First, tend to your own garden and make sure that all the crops are still rising.
Oh, dude. Yes, 100%. Get your house in order, tend to your crops, whatever analogy you want to use, then put the paid media on top. We just had a pretty significant new client come to us. Not Fortune 1000, but big company, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. And the CMO is like, hey, can you check out our social? I came back, I'm like, do you realize that there's one person, literally one person on social ruining the whole thing? Just pummeling you. Every single post, she comes up and she talks about this bad experience that she's had, and she goes on for multiple paragraphs. She writes a fresh one after every post. Who am I going to believe? The brand or the angry customer? And to your point, where there's no response, there's no one like, hey, we're sorry, or there's a mix-up, or you could do absolutely anything. First of all, don't copy and paste some boilerplate shit, but solve the problem, because that one example is emblematic of the entire brand experience. If you're not going to take care of an angry customer, what makes me think you're going to take care of me?
When how much money did you spend to get the customer? Right?
Yes.
All it takes is a few nice gestures of empathy, and you can keep them by solving the problem.
And it goes back to your Chewy example, which also goes back to why we call this show Brand Champions, right? Because for the most part, you and I spend most of our time actually acquiring customers. But what we recognize is that what you really want to do is acquire those brand champions. And for years, that data was really hard to find. I remember when we first started looking at this, I was convinced that Nielsen was hiding this data. You'd have to go like 6 layers deep into their website to find the data. Now it's a little easier to find, but every single category, every single research project ever done on this, where it says how important or how influential were all these sources, number one by far is recommendations from friends and family. And number two is always recommendations from strangers. Could be ratings, could be reviews, could be social. And way at the bottom, digital banner ads. It can be, the data varies, but it's often a 10x difference, right? So tend to your crops, send the flowers when needed, let them share that brand story for you.
Here's another one. When your ad goes up on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, there's the ability for people to leave comments on your ad. I read those comments.
Yes.
I read them from my own personal life, but I read them from the clients that we place. And like, you have to respond to those, because those are people that just tried your product that are leaving comments about questions or concerns, or there's prospects who want to talk to people who bought the product and they're going back and forth. What did you like? What did you not? Why did it work? Why didn't it work? Like, that is another amazing source of obviously content and learnings, but also an ability to shape somebody's perception.
Yeah. What's at the bottom of trust? Like, what is the core of trust in any relationship, whether it's human to human or human to brand, is like, listen, right? The data's out there. How can you be a great brand? And I hope that everybody sets out to be like, we are going to be a great brand. Well, if you want to do that, listen. And by the way, they're sitting there, they're screaming it to you in social media. And as a purchaser, I mean, that's point one, but as a purchaser, nobody goes on Amazon and buys anything without reading the ratings or reviews. 100% of people read some ratings or reviews, right? And to your point, the next layer is now social commentary, social comments. Read that.
Yeah, can you imagine if you could leave comments after watching a Super Bowl ad? Like, there's the ability to be like, ask questions. Like, I don't know. I just think this isn't talked about enough. Like, you're spending $10 million on social, and do you have a strategy to respond to comments from the ads that you placed?
It's analogous to when you call customer service and A, they don't answer the phone. B, they don't tell you how long you're going to be on hold, right? Nobody really minds. You're going to put me on hold for 15 minutes. At least tell me, hey man, you're going to be on hold for 15 minutes. Fine. I'll take care of some stuff. I'll come back. But if you won't invest in that little technology, whatever that costs, 6 figures, I don't know, but you continue to bombard me with ads, there's cognitive dissonance in that consumer's mind. They're like, dude, I can't trust you because you're saving money at a moment that matters. And I understand that very few people pick up the phone for customer service nowadays, but it's emblematic of the bigger issue, which is finding all those moments that matter and turning that friction into a powerful, positive experience. Thanks for joining us, everyone. This is Brand Champions. Have a good one.
Brand Champions is a QUESTUS production. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe and review wherever you tune in. You can submit mailbag questions to brandchampions@questus.com.